Welcome to Vetted with Mark Vetter. And today we have an opportunity to talk to Andy Hashimoto. Andy is the Vice President of Insight Financial Services. He's worked with education and with IT equipment in general for, Andy's been looking at your bio about 17 years.
17
And
years.
he has lots of experience, but really this conversation is coming about because in an earlier chat, he and I were discussing how he is using AI. So in a industry adjacent to education, how is AI changing his world and maybe the lessons we can learn in ed tech from Andy to make our evolution faster and a little bit less painless and maybe look for some potholes too. So Andy, welcome to Vetted. We appreciate you being here.
Mark, really appreciate you having me on. I'm excited for the opportunity to talk about this. I've been doing my best to embrace AI in really all facets. So it's going to be a learning experience for me. Happy to share some of the things that I've been doing to learn and hopefully I can gain some knowledge on everything AI here over the next hour or so.
So generative AI really has come to the forefront over the last 3 years. How long have you been dabbling in it and using it as a practical tool within your business?
Probably a lot like a lot of people. I started hearing more about AI, maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Started trying to understand it a little bit more. There are some folks that I've worked with actually up in Washington that I saw them really starting to embrace it. I personally started looking into it much more heavily over the last 6 to 12 months, and just started with simple tasks and then have been growing it from there, just learning about what it is, the prompts, the things I can do with it, and just kind of growing from there. One of the reasons I just wanted to learn more is because I don't see it going away, and so instead I didn't want to hide from it, and I'm still trying to learn more about it so I can leverage it in the best way that I can, which is in a way that is right for me and in my life and business and personal stuff. So
Do you see it as eventually a threat to employment, or do you see it as a way of enhancing and growing private industry?
I hope not. I hope it's not a threat. I think in some areas it probably is a threat to certain positions, because I think there are some daily tasks that I do or that I have. There are some teammates of mine that are tasked to do certain tasks, are tasked to do certain projects that maybe this doesn't take their position, but it helps them do it more effectively. And I'm choosing right now to look at it in that way. This is
Okay.
going to be a tool.
So give us an example of the last week, the last month of where you've used this tool in a way to make you much more effective than you would have been a year ago.
Yeah, one of the best ways, and I think what actually prompted our conversation today, Mark, was that I've been using the transcription feature in meetings. And so now in those meetings, I can be more present. Those meetings are typically over video. And now there's more eye contact. There's a little more body language that I can focus on and get a little more feedback that way, because I'm not constantly looking down, writing notes or scribbling something and then thinking about my notes, where I can just be present. And now I know that the transcription is capturing everything that's said during that meeting. I'm then taking those meeting notes and having the AI service or application, which right now I'm using is what I have been using is Chat GPT, and asking Chat GPT to summarize the meeting for me. And then it will give me a very succinct meeting summary with action items. So, and I've found that so far that those notes are accurate. It hasn't been missing things. It's getting the kind of the essence of the meeting. And then for me, it describes action items very clearly. And so then I'm sharing those notes and the action items immediately with the partner or the prospect or our customer, and so that we can stay on track. And now those notes don't take a day or 2 days or 3 days to get put into an email and then a follow-up. So that is now just kind of we've been able to capture things and have very clear plan of attack on the next steps right away.
This week, I am a sports radio nut. I admit I listen to lots of sports radio, but I heard a small clip from Mike McDonald, the new head coach of the Seahawks. And every one of his team meetings, he has two things that goes on. He has an outside consultant who's a former player who evaluates his performance and tells him how to be a better speaker to his team. But they're also using AI to give like position coaches feedback on how did that meeting go. They're training the agent to say,
Yeah.
You stuttered, you weren't direct, or your voice was monotone, or I don't know. I'm excited as a teacher.
Yes.
To get that kind of instantaneous coaching would have been awesome. I know Microsoft does a little bit of that, in PowerPoint coaching. Have you thought about that, using it in that way to make your meetings more effective among your team or with clients?
I have. That was, and I can't remember exactly how that came up. There was another one of the gentlemen that I work with. We were just talking about different prompts, right? And we were asking it to be the best salesperson in the world. How would you write this email? Which led us then to I was on a call with a partner of mine and a prospect, and afterwards I prompted the Chat GPT to be the world's greatest sales trainer. Where did we miss? Where could we have positioned leasing in a more effective way? And the output it was amazing. It caught certain points that were relevant to leasing. It caught certain points that were relevant to my company, where we could have given our point of view on leasing and how we operate. It also was able to then give us, would you like me to generate a role playing situation where if I say this, Mark, you can potentially say this as a response. So using it as a training tool has actually been one of the more exciting features, because like you said, it's instantaneous, more or less, right? And we can then review right after the meeting. Okay, these were the moments that we need to pay attention to for action items, but also just as professional development goes, there was so much there that we could then take into the next call as reminders of these are areas that we need to be, looking out for. And these are areas that we can do a little bit better. So that prompt has been fantastic.
It'd be interesting flipping your training in private industry to a classroom. Teams or whatever agent listens to the instruction, maybe has the lesson plan already built in, then gets the assessment data from the lesson plan, and then says to the teacher, gosh, these are the areas where there are holes in the learning. And this is how you can go back tomorrow and fix those holes. That would be instantaneous feedback for both the kids and the instructor, and makes the teacher's life so much easier in determining that and really increasing the learning, just like you're doing in private industry.
Right. I think for us, sometimes, I've been doing this for a long time, right? And there are teachers who have also been teaching for a long time. I think, we just think we're doing everything good or good enough, right? Or we feel like it's good, but to the coach's credit, he has somebody there, right, watching and looking for things that could be changed. And so if we have that, I know not everyone has someone listening into all of their calls or their teaching sessions, but now to have that agent available, I think is a really positive way for us to use the technology just to do our jobs more effectively, especially if you're open to that, and open to growing.
And that's the key, isn't it? Is we've all got to be willing to do that. And personally, when I was a public speaker doing, principal like big parent meetings, I was very insecure about that. And then a fellow principal who I had immense trust in became one of the parents in my school. And so I had her take notes during our public events, and I could trust her to be gentle, but
Right.
also honest. And it really helped because I had that professional outside view. That's special to have, but with AI, what you're using it for is almost that in every single meeting. It's a cool function. So you're uploading contracts, you're uploading data, pricing, all kinds of things into ChatGPT. Are you worried at all about the scraping of data, about the loss of data, about your company's secrets being used to train other companies because it's training off of you? Then it's going to train other people based upon your creativity.
In the beginning, I had no clue. I just wasn't thinking about that part, right? So 6, 8 months ago, when I started down this path and learning more, I was just trying to learn about how does this work? What are the prompts? What can I have it do? And I was excited about that. As I've been having more of these conversations with other IT directors, when I just say, "Hey, I'm going to transcribe this, and this is what I'm doing. Are you okay with that?" They've started to mention that to me. We had our internal CTO mentioned that we need to all be aware of that. That is what's really happening, or that is what is happening in the background with the tools like ChatGPT. So in the beginning, I just was ignorant to that, right? But now as I'm learning, it is something I'm going to be more aware of. And, as far as putting in contracts or companies' financials, right? We haven't done that yet, but I can see that becoming a thing potentially. All of our marketing and all of our internal documents now, those are not going onto the public AI application. So we've also pivoted now into Copilot internally just to make sure that we are kind of keeping a little bit more control of our data. But it's a concern now that I'm becoming more aware as time goes on, and I imagine, I think other folks will too, as we just like all of this stuff, as the technology grows and changes, become more aware of what's happening.
We're all going to have this little AI agent that follows us around and gets to know us so well, right?
Yep.
And I started thinking this week a little bit about brand loyalty. I use Copilot and I'm planning a trip to Australia. And it came up and said, Mark, I know you love live music. Do you want me to find live music events along this itinerary we developed for you? It knows me that well.
So, Mark, did you have to train, quote unquote, train, like tell Copilot, here, these are some of the things I like. I like this type of music. I like to travel here or how did it gain that information?
Just through my queries. So I started saying, okay, let's plan a trip from Brisbane to Daintree. I want 2 weeks this time of year. I want non-traditional tourist stops. I'm going to do a camper van. We're going to, and so now it knows that about me. And because we also do RVing in the United States, if I ask it a question about travel, it'll say, are you doing this flying or with your frequent flyer miles, or are you doing this in the RV? So it's beginning to query me based upon my queries
Right.
to get my taste. And because I'll ask it, it's much easier to ask AI to scrape the internet for live music than for me to do, you know, tons of Google searches.
Right.
And so I'll use it for that kind of a search. And so it fascinated me that now in Australia, it's asking me if it wants to do the work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I switch to a different brand, a different agent, they'll all have to be retrained, right? There's some brand loyalty that's going to be developed in AI agents. So for districts or businesses to make that initial selection, all the work you've done already in ChatGPT, if you switch to Copilot, even though it's still going through ChatGPT, honestly, but the data will be segmented differently, you may lose some of those things that you've already built.
That's where I was going to go there next, which is over the last couple of weeks, I've been shifting brands, right? And I've noticed that the output isn't, maybe it's not as relevant. I don't like it as much. And so, because I did spend some time, and I've spent so much time querying, right? Giving different prompts, asking it different things, personal stuff, family trips, also side projects that I'm working on. I've uploaded, information about my company and what we do. And I've uploaded some of the sales trainers that we like. right? And kind of their style. I've said, write my emails in this style, so it kind of knows what I'm looking for. And now that I'm shifting, I see that it's gonna take a little bit of time to to teach it, to teach the new brand kind of who I am, what I like, how I like to my tone, um, those sorts of things. So I think it's important, right, to maybe start in the right place, but also understand that it could take a little bit of time for that agent to get to know you.
I think that's going to be a big concern for both industry and education alike is, hey, let's just use what's free right now. But later, when we start really settling on a brand, people are going to be so unhappy initially because the training piece is slow. But once it happens, it's just like, it's like a blossom. I've been amazed at how well Copilot knows me. It's a little scary already,
Yeah.
but I do use it, to be honest, several times a day.
Yeah.
I'm in Copilot a lot.
Okay. Yeah. I'm making the transition to Copilot now. It is, the AI agents to everything, right? And then it is a little bit scary, right? Because who am I? And it nailed it, right?
Mhm.
What I like, what my interests are, what I'm working on, what my tone is. So it can kind of get your personality by the way that you write your prompts and the follow-up questions that come after that. So that is interesting. And now and equally as a little bit scary that it's out there and it knows you very, very well after a very pretty relatively short period of time.
So let's flip to Andy, the dad.
Yeah.
Are you worried as a dad about your kids' data and about how much this agent's going to know about them as they grow older?
Like I'm just like my jump into this, I'm trying not to be worried, but more I want to educate, myself so then I can educate my kids and prepare them because I just don't see it going away. Right. I think it's going to be there, like you said, we're going to have an agent right by our side. So what I'm trying to do is teach myself and learn as much as I can and be kind of aware of what's
Mm.
going on so that I can give give guidance on what's happening and give them some an idea of what they need to be looking out for and what they need to be preparing for. So they are dabbling in it. Luckily they're not going too deep yet, but I think as they and as they use it more, we probably need to have a conversation about what are we putting in there, what are we asking, right, so that there's not too many things going on. It is something that I'm aware of, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a little scary. And what is going to be the appropriate age the kids should begin dabbling with AI, or an agent should be allowed to follow them class to class and help become their learning partner in that sense. Um, for some kids, special education, an AI agent might become a tool used to modify everything for the disability. It might become a part of an IEP even. And that's a glorious thing if it helps kids in our world be successful. But
Right.
if the data can be used against them in a negative way, we all know that you apply for a job with a security clearance, they come back and look at elementary school stuff. They do. As a principal, I've had the FBI sit in my office and ask me about a student I had 15 years prior who was applying for a high security clearance. Will what they talked to the AI agent about 15 years prior now be open to
Right.
scrutiny?
Yep. Yep.
So it's very interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. Yeah, because all those playground conversations that we had when we were kids was just we were young and talking with our buddies about stuff we didn't really understand or know about, but that was on the playground. But now if it's written, it's there forever, right? Or it's
Right.
typed into an agent, it's there forever. And it could just be kids trying to explore the world as they grow up,
Mhm.
right? Which is normal. But maybe that conversation goes a slightly a direction they didn't really want it to, or just exploring, it's there. So that part, it's another good point, Mark. It is that part is a little bit scary, just to think that, just trying to figure things out for kids in their life and in their world, that could come out to be a negative for them 15 years later. That is unfortunate. There may not be any malice, right? They're just trying to understand and have, and like you said, that's maybe a conversation they would have had with their friend on the school bus, but now they're talking to an agent, and it's there forever. It is something that I'm going to start thinking more about, right? As a parent, that they always have to be aware. I have educated them and talked with them that they have to, anything that they're putting out on social or text or anything, they have to be mindful that another parent could see this. They have to know that, or just behave as if a parent, a teacher, administrator, somebody else is going to be reading that. And how do you want that to, you got to be aware that could fall into the wrong person's hands any moment. Yeah. I guess that's just another layer. Got to be doing the same thing with how they're using AI.
It is such an incredible development that can really make life better for the world, but it's also an incredibly scary development. So
You're scaring me, Mark, a little bit. I'm going to start getting more, being much more secure and keep my, understanding what I'm putting out there. Because it's so awesome at the same time.
Yes.
Right. The help work wise, it's amazing. Planning trips, which I've done a little bit of that too for the family, getting ideas, right. And just doing that in, just a matter of seconds. It is amazing.
Yeah, it is. And even like before I do a podcast interview, hey, Copilot, what are 5 questions I should be asking someone in private industry about how they're using it, right?
Right.
And it's not the questions I use, but it helps me formulate and brainstorm if I don't have a partner sitting beside me to help me in that way.
Right.
So
Mark, I did ask Chat GPT before, tell me the ways that I've leveraged Chat GPT, and it gave me all kinds of stuff that I had forgotten. Right.
Awesome.
So it was awesome, right? I've been using sales and business, meeting productivity, which we talked about, personal finance and tax strategy. So that part now I do kind of regret of maybe some of that should have been kept private, right?
Mm-hmm.
Family and personal projects, right? So trips, right? I've kind of used it for the same idea. I've used it to help just in document creation, presentations. And and what I really been using that for is just like you said, to get started, right? Give me some ideas, give me some thought starters. And then, cause a lot of times it will help, and it's helped me kind of overcome a writer's block, if you will. Right. Where to start?
So you have a business account through ChatGPT. Do you have a separate personal account or license through Microsoft with Copilot?
I have a license with Copilot through work. And then I have the personal Chat GPT, which I use for basically that, which I have been using for everything.
So I have my personal business license with Microsoft, right? That gives me Copilot. And I always make sure I'm logged in with that account, not a professional account. And I think that that's going to become more and more important for us to know which account we're logged into ChatGPT with. Because if you're in a business account, who owns that? That's a whole nother question. See, we as educators always think about that. You don't put anything on email as an educator that you don't want on the front page of the newspaper.
Right. Okay. Yep. Same idea. It's the kids.
Right. And so now with Copilot or ChatGPT or any other agent, which account am I in? Because if I'm in a public paid for account, it can go on the front page of the newspaper.
Right. Right.
Something for all of us to think about.
Yeah. And certainly another layer for teachers, right? Which are always under so much scrutiny. And now there could be even more, right? Or there's going to be, and then, and the access to what they are doing is, it's just a lot. It's a lot for folks to think about. I personally just hope that it doesn't slow the adaptation, and using it for good is what I'm really, is I just don't want it to get so nefarious that we just don't use it anymore. Right. And that we can leverage the power for good. That's what I'm really hopeful.
I am too, and I think it's going to have a wonderful positive effect. I had lunch with a couple of school district friends the other day, and they had narrowed down to they purchased a vendor with tunneled data for student security, which will all be filtered. So students are going into nefarious things, dangerous things, self-harm things, they'll be alerted. And then they have the co-pilot chat, which is very limited, but they've made their decision, wrapped their policy around it, and are spending the money to be data secure. And I
Mhm.
was so proud of them that they're thinking ahead and making the right choices before everybody gets things that are way too ingrained.
Right. Right.
So
So I
that's
guess
exciting.
on our side, we're trying to figure out. We're in the very infancy stages in using it in our business, right? It's kind of like everywhere. It's a little bit wild, wild west. We're just people are using Perplexity, some are in chat, some are in Copilot, right? But it's almost that somebody needs to understand this well enough to put some, like you said, put some policies or guidelines or in place to just to be aware, right? Or somebody needs to be aware enough to deliver that downstream to gain control a little bit about what we're doing. And it's more really for protection of personal and business.
It is.
On our side, we're not there yet. It's everyone is keep doing whatever they want. Probably some actually I know some people are on Grok, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also just putting stuff into their phone that way. Right. So we've got, I mean, that's just a few people that I know in our company, right? And just kind of using it however they brand loyalty, I guess, is already starting. So I don't know. It's gonna be it's gonna be an interesting how, and then it'd be interesting to see how this progresses, right? And it's all happening so quickly. Then things are changing so fast, and the power of this, it just gets more and more powerful every day.
Well, hopefully our conversation will spur anybody listening to think a little bit about their brand, think about their data, and start establishing those boundaries to protect themselves and their clients or their students as they build into this. It's a great tool. We all should be learning it. We all should be getting to know it and using it. But building the walls around our lives is super important also. So thank you, Andy. Thanks for joining. I
All right,
appreciate it.
Mark. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate that.
Take care.
Thank you.